Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. This time I'd like to discuss with you a very interesting topic. Should you buy an M1 powered MacBook today or should you wait for new upcoming products that have been rumored by various Apple leakers? Let's look into the subject. First, let's discuss the leaks in question. So first of all, they come from two rather reputable sources, Mark Gurman and Ming-Chi Kuo, both with a pretty reliable track record in terms of Apple-related leaks. Before we start discussing these in detail, let's understand that these are still leaks and rumors at this point, right? So even though these two guys have generally been pretty effective with reporting product changes and product launches, let's keep in mind the fact that Apple is one of the most secretive companies in the world, if not the most secretive company in the world. So generally, they keep rumors under wraps, and generally, very detailed information is not really known prior to the launch itself. Okay, so as I've said, we're gonna try and make a decision in this video if it's good to buy an M1 powered Mac now or should we wait for later. First of all, let's look at the rumors. As I've said, these originate with Mark Gurman and Ming-Chi Kuo. They are now all over the media. They've been re-reported countless times. I'll link a couple of articles down below in the description. Basically, Mark Gurman wrote a few articles, or this was first reported via Bloomberg, if I remember correctly, and Ming-Chi Kuo puts out communications of his own. All right, so first things first, there's going to be a new redesign of the MacBook Pro line. We're going to have two products, a 14-inch MacBook Pro and a 16-inch variant. Now, the 14-inch will probably remain similar in overall size to the current 13-inch Pro because Apple will look to reduce the bezel size. But the screen will go up in real estate to 14 inches, right? Okay. There's going to be an external redesign, which is pretty important. It's going to be a completely new design language. It's going to mimic the iPhone 12 and the iPad Pro lines with more rectangular looks and squared off corners, excuse me. So basically it's going to be a little bit of an updated design compared to the current format. Also, they're going to reportedly get rid of the hump underneath. If you look closely with the current MacBooks, they have a small hump underneath the MacBook itself. Basically, this is going away. Another thing that's going away, and this has amazed a lot of Apple fans, let's say, is the Touch Bar. The Touch Bar is being replaced with physical keys. Now, I myself like the Touch Bar. I've been using it on and off, doing editing and changing the display brightness and so on. But I do agree with the general consensus. The Touch Bar is a little bit more difficult to use than traditional physical keys, so I'm okay with that. And still, there's a lot of good news here. The displays are finally going to get the rumored mini LED technology, which is basically an intermediary between LED and the current IPS screens we get, a lot closer to OLED in the fact that it will have multiple different LEDs embedded. These will be tiny LEDs embedded into the display panel itself, will allow a lot better contrast and a lot of the benefits that we associate with OLED. Also, we're looking at the new processor, of course, a new chip inside, dubbed either M1x or M2, whatever you want to call it. It's reportedly going to go up in the core count from currently 8 to 12. More importantly, it's going to jump from the current 4 performance cores to 8 performance cores. So double the performance in theory. Now, I'm not sure if this scales linearly. Okay, if double the performance cores means double the peak performance, but you can be certain that there's going to be a significant performance increase. there will be a return of MagSafe. Basically, those of you who don't know, MagSafe was a connector, a battery connector that older MacBooks used. The 2016 MacBook Pro did away with that. It was a magnetic connection that allowed for charging, right? It was a dedicated port for charging the MacBook, and if you pulled on it, suddenly if someone tripped on the cable would simply disconnect from the Mac instead of actually dropping the Mac from the table, which is a brilliant idea. I'm not a big fan of how they implemented MagSafe with the iPhone 12 series. Hopefully it's not something as gimmicky as that, because I don't really find its utility anywhere. But yeah, let's see. I'm curious if they're going to implement MagSafe in a separate connector, or it's still going to be on the USB-C connector in some way. I don't know. But if they move the power connector to a different designated location, this could potentially free up more ports, which is also good in my book. Again, another fan favorite making a comeback is an SD card reader, potentially. Okay, so everything I'm saying here, these are rumors, so let's not jump on the bandwagon just yet. So basically, the SD card will make a return, as a lot of creators, content creators, video creators, photographers, and the like still take footage on SD cards in their photo equipment and video equipment. So that's still needed to this day. For certain, I'm not sure if, let's say, all of these reported ports will come back, including the SD card. But what I know is that they're probably going to go up from the current 2 ports that you have. You have 2 USB-C ports, and that's it. And you can use one for charging. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty certain the I/O of the new MacBook Pros will be greatly expanded. Remains to be seen specifically which ports are we actually going to get. There's been very little rumors regarding the GPUs inside, so we don't know for sure if we're going to look only at Apple GPUs, the integrated GPUs like the M1 Macs currently have, or are we going to have a discrete GPU at some point, like the MacBook Pro 16 currently has from AMD. This hasn't been really touched upon. Another thing that's not been touched upon in great detail is pricing. So here we'll discuss a bit what I think regarding the pricing. But in a nutshell, these are the rumors. I'll add the articles in the description, as I've said. Now, let's look at 2 things. How I view that Apple will go forward with this, and also the pricing discussion. So first of all, the MacBook lineup in Apple's product line has been sort of almost neglected, let's say, and you can pretty much place the blame to a certain extent on this on Intel, because basically their release cycles have been very lengthy. They haven't managed to shrink their process further. So they were on 14 nanometers for a very, very long time. This meant that a lot of their processors were very power hungry and also very heat intensive. They produced a lot of heat. This made shrinking the Macs quite a chore. Let's remember that the i9 or i7 powered MacBook Pros from a couple of years back, I think 2019, they were ridiculous in that they would reach 100 degrees Celsius really fast in even basic tasks, and they would be throttling down quite intensely, which was a serious problem. Now that Apple's rid of that and they're moving to their own silicon, okay, they're going to be adding a lot of horsepower in terms of processing capability, and obviously a lot less heat. So they've launched the M1s. The M1s have met with pretty much universal acclaim as far as I'm aware. I'm a big fan of the M1 MacBook Pro that I have in front of me. So my guess is Apple is going to try and pretty much build on this good sentiment from the public. What I think is they're gonna look at the MacBook lineup and expand it significantly, right? Like they've done across all of their product lines. Just look at it for a second. They now sell 7 different iPhones. They start with SE, 10R, 11, then the whole range of 12s. 12 mini, normal 12, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max. So they've expanded their range so that anyone can afford an iPhone at any price, from like 400 and under to 12, 1500 and above, right? Look at the iPad range. Similarly, it's grown over time. We now have the iPad mini, the regular iPad, the iPad Air, and the iPad Pro in 2 sizes, 11 and 12.9 inch. These two, the last two, are probably also due for a refresh. But again, you have a number of devices at different price points. The AirPods, okay, they introduced the AirPods a few years back. Now you have the AirPods, you have the AirPods Pro, and their latest offering, the studio quality AirPods, I forget the name, the ones that are really expensive. So my guess is they're going to do the same with the Mac lineup. There's been also a couple of rumors regarding the the MacBook Air, and it seems that the refresh for the Air has been postponed. It's not happening this year. It's a 2022 thing. So this year they're going to focus on the MacBook Pros. Okay, so there's going to be the 2 models, the 14-inch and the 16-inch. Now what I'm curious about is the pricing. Let's not forget that the 13-inch variant with Intel starts at $1699 if I'm not mistaken, whereas the Pro 13-inch with M1 is $1399 or $1299, somewhere around there, $1,300 base price. I'm curious if the 14-inch will go down in price all the way to the price currently on the M1 powered 13-inch MacBook Pro. I kind of lean to say no, because if some, at least like say half of these rumors are correct, then Apple will be adding features to the product. And in years past, Apple did this a lot. They would launch a product and then they would improve it for the next generation, but the price would stay the same. This hasn't happened in recent times, okay? The iPhone 12 has gotten, if I'm correct, the iPhone 12 regular size is more expensive than the 11 was last year. The 12 mini is now the cheapest one, and it's pretty much at the same price as the 11 was last year. A better example would be the iPad Air 4, which was recently launched. It replaced the iPad Air 3. It did a product refresh, a redesign, some improvements. It took some features from the 11-inch Pro and put them into the Air, but at a $100 price increase. So I'm not seeing the recent Apple as launching a product with more features, a better screen, more input methods and that sort of stuff, and a lot more performance compared to the M1, and keeping the same price. I don't really think so. That being said, I do believe that this 13-inch MacBook Pro is gone when the new ones get released. Because yeah, they wouldn't really keep it unless the difference in price from the 13-inch to the 14-inch would be massive. And at that point, I think they would have an incentive to keep it around, right? If your new 14-inch starts at $2,000, the difference to the current 13-inch Pro is pretty big. So I don't think Apple would let such a large part of the public not be able to afford a MacBook Pro. All right. Now, we've read the rumors. I think it's a good time as any to ask you guys if you like the content, to like the video, subscribe and click on the bell notification as it will help me tremendously grow the channel. And that way, whenever I post a new video, you guys will get to see it first. Now, let's move on to the decision, basically. Should you buy an M1 powered Mac or should you wait? In terms of the MacBook Air, the decision is pretty simple and straightforward. They're not going to be replacing it this year with a different Air. So yeah, go ahead and buy one if that's what you want and what you need. you should be totally okay in buying one now. As a sort of a buying guide, I would say get as much RAM and storage as you possibly can afford, because you cannot add more later. I would say prioritize pretty much memory instead of storage. Storage, you could add external hard drives, but memory you can't. So yeah, the MacBook Air, totally worth the buy. It's going to be around for at least another year, for 2021 at least, even if they launch a new one in sometime November, December, towards the end of the year, like they launched the M1s in November, I think. It's going to be a couple of months until they're available. So yeah, they're not going to be launching a new one. You're safe to buy right now. The discussion is more complicated for the 13-inch. There's one problem here that we all need to be aware of, is the symptom that we all suffer from, myself included. When deciding to buy something, you're thinking that, oh, maybe I should wait for the next great product. This has some basis in the truth, because whenever you buy something, the company is already working on a successor model, right? So the current latest and greatest won't be the latest and greatest for long. It's going to get replaced. But if you're constantly waiting for the next great product, you're never going to be buying anything that's worth the wait, okay? So with that out of the way, I'll start the discussion very simply with who shouldn't buy this machine. If you're a gamer, someone who takes gaming seriously and are passionate about gaming, and that's going to be your main focus, I would stay away from the M1 Max altogether. They have an internal GPU. That's okay, it's good, but it's not groundbreaking. It's not going to outperform any discrete GPU out there, except some very base models. And also, gaming hasn't been a huge focus for Apple in its history, I think. And there's not a huge library of games available. And if you're looking for a gaming machine, you're better off looking into the PC variants, which offer quite a lot of firepower for similar prices. Unless you're talking of gaming services, Nvidia recently announced that their gaming streaming service will work natively on the M1 chip powered Macs. So yeah, if you're not looking for a gaming service, you're looking to play games directly on your own machine, these Macs are not the ones for you, okay? Secondly, if you're an intensive user, an intensive content creator, someone who edits a lot of raw files at 8K, 6K with a big load or a huge number of photos, and you do a lot of very, very heavy editing, yeah, you should probably wait, because the performance increase is going to be significant in the next generation, okay, compared to the current ones. I'm not referring to people such as myself who have barely started using iMovie and that sort of stuff. No, I'm talking about professionals who do this for a living for a long time, and they really require the processing power. They should wait. Again, if you're a coder, someone who uses multiple IDEs, runs multiple streams and intensive projects, perhaps you should wait. If you're more on the beginner side, that verdict doesn't go for you. But if you're a very intensive power user in terms of programming, yes, you should wait. So these are the categories that shouldn't look at the current 13-inch MacBook Pro. Everyone else, well, I've also read an article recently in Mac Rumours, I believe, stating that you shouldn't buy a MacBook Pro 13-inch and you should wait. I kind of tend to disagree with that. First of all, there's very few use cases where you're better off with the 13-inch compared to the MacBook Air, right? It has the cooler that enables it to have a little bit more peak performance and sustained performance, right? It will not throttle down due to overheating. It has a little bit brighter screen. It has the touch bar, which not many people are fans of. So not many differences, and it has a little bit better, 15% I think, battery life. But other than that, the Air is pretty much the same product. But if you are not an intensive gamer, if you're not an intensive content creator, if you're not coding at a very high level, intense level, you're a power user in terms of coding, and you decided you don't want the Air and want the Pro, I would pretty much say go ahead with it. They're getting price cuts, so they're already being discounted. I think even in my local market, where if you recall correctly, I bought this one for $1,700, $1,740, something like that. It's being discounted by about $100. There's good deals for it on Amazon already. And let's not forget this is an incredible laptop in today's market. You get a very good battery life, very good performance, right? You get a great screen. Yeah, it has a little bit of bezel, but that hasn't bothered me, and I don't know how many of you it will actually bother. So let's not forget for a second that this and the Air, they're both great machines as they are today, and always waiting for the next great product is not a viable strategy. If you need a laptop today, I would say go ahead with the purchase. Make sure you get it at a good price. And I'm gonna add to this, make sure you have a specific budget in mind, because if you're gonna need more performance and your budget isn't limited, so you can easily go about $2,000, yeah, you could wait, and you don't necessarily need one today. Yes, you can wait. But if you're on a more strict budget, I'm going to reiterate that I don't think Apple is going to be launching the new 14-inch Pro at the same price, right? So I do think they're going to increase the price even a little bit, maybe to $1,500 as a base price, and that's already a little bit of a difference. It may be worth it in terms of performance per dollar, but performance per dollar is not necessarily meaningful for those who have a hard cap on their budget. So if you're prepared to spend $1,300 on the laptop and it costs $1,600, regardless of the performance increase, you're not going to be buying the $1,600 one if your budget is restricted. So, as a conclusion, if you're buying the 13-inch Pro today, I think it's still a good buy. I still enjoy it tremendously. I still run everything related to the channel on it fine and dandy. I can edit stuff in iMovie. As I've said in my previous video, my video review of it, it's going to be supported for quite a bit of time. I don't think this will be left without support anytime soon, even though it's a first-gen product. And yeah, they're still a good buy, and the MacBook Air even more so, because we know for sure pretty much that's not going to be replaced in the immediate future. With that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.